Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Bean Museum. We're so excited to have you guys here again. Just really quick, we're going to be doing discovery reading today. So this will be our reading program. And if you have any questions or comments that you want to share with us, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. And we'll try and answer those questions for you, okay? Now, I just want to make sure. Let's see. Nope. Usually we have a setting that allows us to make sure that the pictures aren't backwards like they are right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn you guys around. Give me just 1 second. Turn this all around. Do-do-do. And flip. Okay. Let's see. That should help. Sorry, just a few technical difficulties. Yep. Okay, perfect. We'll go ahead and do it this way then, and then I'll check for comments. Make sure that you guys, see if you guys have any questions or comments that you want to add about our books today. All right, so today at the Bean Museum, we are going to be talking about plants. Now, a lot of you guys probably associate the Bean Museum with all of our animals, which is a great thing to talk about when you're here at the Bean Museum. But we are the Life Science Museum, so we actually talk about lots of different kinds of life while we are here, including things like plants and fungi and other kingdoms in life. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to talk about plants today. So I want you to be thinking about different kinds of plants that you have maybe seen. Maybe even think, what's your favorite kind of plant to eat? You know, maybe a fruit or a vegetable. I really like popcorn. That's my favorite food of all time. So I would say that corn is probably my favorite plant. We're going to be reading a book right off the bat called A Log's Life. It is by Wendy Pfeffer, illustrated by Robin Breckham, and it is published by Aladdin Publishing. So we're going to be talking about a log and a tree. Think about how many different kinds of ways you can think of for uses for trees. We use them for wood, we use them for paper, they also are great for shade and different things like that, huh? All right, so we're going to be talking about this tree. Deep in a forest, a great oak tree stands. A family of squirrels lives in a hole in its trunk. A porcupine chews on its branches, and a colony of carpenter ants nests under the outer bark. A woodpecker pecks at the rough bark, searching for insects. He spears one, devours it, and hunts for more. Wood-boring beetles burrow under the bark, chewing wood and leaving tunnels. Water and air seep into the tunnels. Toadstools and other fungi, such as mildew, molds, and mushrooms, sprout in these damp places. Slugs and snails crawl up the tree trunk into the tunnels and eat the fungi. Seems like a pretty useful tree. Lots of different animals are using it. One stormy day, a strong wind whips through the forest. The old oak tree bends with every gust. Rain pelts its branches. Wind tosses its leaves through the air. Lightning flashes and sizzles down its trunk. A thunderous crack startles the porcupine sleeping nearby. The tall oak begins to topple. Squirrels feel the trembling and scramble out of their hole. One strong gust of blustery wind tears the great oak's roots from the ground. The tree crashes down, shaking the forest floor. Branches break, limbs splinter, leaves scatter. Do you think that's it for the tree, guys? Do you think that's all it can provide? Let's see. Now, it's a giant log. So it's not just a tree anymore, it's a log. Soon, The storm stops and the sun comes out. An umbrella of leaves and tangled branches block the sunshine from the forest floor. The porcupine comes out of its den. Squirrels scamper to see the old hole that once was their home. Under the log, ants rush about, carrying white bundles of babies. A spider crawls through cracks and crevices, searching for a dry spot to place her egg sac. Millipedes settle between the log and the wet ground. For now, they are safe from the spider. Termites soon discover the fallen log, and they move in too. They not only eat the rotting wood, but they lay their eggs there as well. So you can see there's even more animals, more insects, things like millipedes and spiders that have moved in that couldn't use the tree before, but now they can, now that it's a log. For 3 or 4 years, through hot, cold, wet, and dry seasons, ants, beetles, fungi, slugs, snails, spiders, millipedes, and termites live in the log. One winter, the porcupine's hollow log collapses. He moves into the oak log too. You guys see the porcupine there? Snuggled up nice and cozy in the oak log. That's where he's chosen to hibernate. In the spring, click beetles snap and click their bodies. Can you make any snap sounds? Snap and click their bodies and flip high in the air before settling in the log. Salamanders, frightened by the noise and sudden movements, dart under the log for safety and stay. They decided that was a pretty nice home there in the log. In the summer, pillbugs and slugs crawl inside the cool, moist log to keep from drying out. Pillbugs eat dead leaves. Salamanders eat the pillbugs. Slugs slip out at night and eat almost anything. The old log provides both food and shelter for the millipedes. They eat decaying plants and trees, but spiders eat the millipedes. So we can see a lot of circle of life here. Things eating things and then getting eaten by other things. Several more years of hot, cold, wet, and dry seasons pass. Time, weather, and the chewing, pecking, boring, and tunneling of many animals and insects make the inside of the log spongy. The outer bark becomes soft and damp, and gradually it falls to the ground. Wood-boring insects have no more wood to bore. They find another log. The woodpecker hunts for other trees to peck. Spiders spin their webs in drier spots, and the porcupine moves on to a more solid log. So are the animals still using the log the same way they were before? Not exactly. It started to decay enough that they need to find other logs to use. But don't worry, there's still more to this story. Slowly, a lush green blanket of moss carpets the rotting log. Its thick roots break down the wood. Over the next few years, the log crumbles. What is left looks like dirt. It feels like dirt. It smells like dirt. It is dirt. Earthworms move in. They turn the soil over just as a shovel does. They burrow down and break up the soil just as a rake does. In about 10 years, the rotting log has become a mound of rich, black earth. So it used to be a tree, right? And then it became a log, and after a lot of years, it's broken down into dirt. One autumn day, an acorn falls. You guys see that acorn there? From a nearby oak tree, and a squirrel buries it in the rich soil. A seedling oak sprouts and grows until there's the seedling. One day, deep in the forest, another great oak tree stands. Squirrels move in, so do carpenter ants, beetles, and woodpeckers. The ants build nests, the beetles burrow, the woodpeckers peck. For years, life goes on in the oak tree. Then one night, the wind whistles through the trees, the old oak bends and shakes, it crashes to the forest floor and becomes another giant log. So there we got to look at the life cycle of a tree. We got to see it go from a big full-grown oak tree falling over into a log and being broken down by various different animals using it up until it turns into soil. And then that soil, once a seed from another oak tree, it gets buried there by a squirrel who's trying to store away all his tasty food for the winter. He digs down and he buries it deep in there, and he probably forgot about it, and it goes ahead and takes that rich soil that once was a tree, remember? And it grows into a brand new tree. So, pretty cool. That was a log's life. Now, I just want to make sure, see if we have any comments or questions real quick. All right, we're doing good. If you have any comments or questions, you're welcome to add them down below. I'll be checking in between to see if you have anything. And let's keep thinking about different plants that we really enjoy. A favorite plant, either one to look at or to eat. I like to eat plants a lot. So I'm going to show you guys some really cool plants really quick here. So we learned that the oak tree comes from an acorn, right? You may have seen acorns before. They're about that big. So they're pretty hefty for a seed. Because I'm going to show you guys a really, really tiny seed. These are mustard seeds. And those right there, they're little tiny. There's a whole bunch of them in a jar here. And they're itty bitty little seeds. And they become a huge bush. So when these are planted in the right conditions, they can grow into a really, really big plant. So these are some little tiny seeds, and now I have a really big seed, one of the biggest actually. I have this seed right here. Any idea what this might be, guys? It's a pretty tasty seed. You've probably tasted it before. This is a coconut. Now, this is a seed, and it's huge. Look at this compared to our teeny tiny little mustard seeds. These are about the size of maybe like a pinhead, or maybe if you ever are writing with your pencil and the lead breaks a little bit, that's going to be even bigger than the mustard seeds. These little tiny seeds compared to this big, huge coconut seed. And it also becomes a big, tall tree as well. So plants are pretty cool that they can start out as something really, really small or really, really big and turn into something else, something totally different from what they looked like as a seed. All right, now we're going to read a book. Another book. This book is called The Curious Garden. This book is by Peter Brown, and it is published by Little Brown and Company. So here it is, The Curious Garden. We're going to learn a little bit about gardening and plants. And what's really cool about this book, guys, is it's actually based a little bit on a true story, okay? So I'll tell you a little bit about that at the end. There once was a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. Do you guys see any green anywhere in this picture? Pretty much all browns and whites and blacks, huh? However, there was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days, when everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. There's Liam, guys. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working ages ago, and since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. What do you think he's going to do, guys? Do you think he's going to go up the stairs? There's only one way to find out. Let's see. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last thing he expected to find up here. When he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. You guys see those plants right there? They're in need of a little bit of assistance, so that's what Liam's going to do for him. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. So see, he had to bail all the water out of the flowers. He had to cut back the bushes a little bit. You have to prune them. And he tried singing to the flowers as well and see how that helps. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. See his little garden there? Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up farther and farther down the tracks and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. So there they go, going down the railway. Over the next few months, Liam and the curious garden explored every corner of the railway. There he is with his curious garden, exploring the railway. Here's another corner that they found. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. Don't worry, guys, the plants aren't dead. It's cold out, so they can't have their plants, they can't grow the same way they did in the spring and in the summer and autumn, but they'll be back. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. So here he is, he's looking at books to read about becoming a gardener, and he's got all his stuff ready. He's gonna go help the garden. Winter had taken a toll on the garden, but thanks to Liam's planning, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. See him there? He's watering the plants, he's pruning them again, and he's singing even better songs for the garden. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring, it was finally going to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up farther and farther from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. So here's the railway, guys. Do you see where the plants are going? They're climbing down onto the rooftops, coming down there. The garden was especially curious about old forgotten things. Where's the garden in right here? Parked itself inside of a car. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. So we can't have the garden growing on a stop sign or a fire hydrant because we still need those. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. Here they are for this old man. And there's Liam secretly putting some garden somewhere else. But the most surprising thing that popped up were the new gardeners. Look at that. We've got all these people excited about the new plants that have popped up in their city. All these gardens. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. Right here on the railroad tracks, guys. Ta-da! Isn't it a lot greener than before? All right, the end. Great listening, everybody. This book here, like I said at the very beginning, it's a little bit based on a true story. So the author, Peter Brown, he heard about this abandoned railway in Manhattan. That's in New York City. So there's an abandoned railway that was shut down in 1980. And then a bunch of plants and trees and all kinds of other things started to grow there. So now you can still go see that railway and see it just covered in green life, all of those plants. So plants are pretty cool in how they grow into different spaces. All right, I'm gonna check one more time for any comments or questions or anything that you guys might have. All righty. Okie dokie, guys. Well, before we wrap up discovery reading, I just want to show you guys one more thing that I thought was pretty cool. I have a big chart of different types of leaves here with me. And something really cool that you can do after discovery reading today is you can go home, you can go outside to your backyard or your front yard or the park, go outside to somewhere where you can find different green growing things and look for different leaves or flowers or other things like that, because you can press them similar to how we have this big types of leaves poster press. So we have all these different types of leaves on this poster here. And we have them all labeled. We've got the cherry and the maple and the horse chestnut and all these leaves here. But you can take some stuff home and you can press it in between a book. I recommend using something like a journal or a notebook, or putting the leaf in between a couple pieces of paper and then slipping it into a book so it doesn't stain the pages. But you can press it in between a book and you stack a bunch of heavy books on top of it and it presses the flower or the leaf super, super flat, and then you can tape it to something like this. And it looks pretty cool. And then you can, you have a little piece of nature with you, and you can look up the different features to try and figure out what kind of flower or leaf that, what kind of plant it came from, okay? So there's a little take-home project you guys can do, is you can go look for some plants and press them as well. Anyways, that's all for today's discovery reading, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have lots of programs still coming up with the Bean Museum, so keep tuning in at 11 o'clock each day. We'll be having more discovery reading, more Life Science Live. If you have any subjects that you particularly want to hear about, go ahead and comment those on any of the videos, and we'll take them into consideration, okay? But otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.